You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
Yes, the Lizard King, Chuck Schumer, warning President Trump that the corrupt, filthy, awful third world U.S. intelligence community would be out to get him. Been a long time since I rock and roll. All right, confirmation hearings on Capitol Hill yesterday in the United States Senate, including Tulsi Gabbard, who the Democrats have really turned on. She was a lifelong Democrat, even though she's kind of one of the cool kids from Hawaii and a surfer and joined the U.S. Army and went overseas to combat zones, unlike Tim Walz, who didn't, even though he said that he did, and he lied about all that and stuff. And Tulsi Gabbard serves. She's still a U.S. Army Reserve officer, and she's no longer a member of the House of Representatives, and she's no longer a Democrat either, which is good. The whole country should go the way that Tulsi Gabbard has gone, and she's still got Democrat things about her, of course, because she just left the Democrat Party a very short time ago. Listen, among people that have left the Democrat Party over time, Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump, me, Tulsi Gabbard, and now you got Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They're out to assassinate his character, too, the Democrats. They will destroy anyone that stops singing from the party sheet music because it's required. You must goose step with them to the grave, and they very often expedite that journey as well. Now let's go to some audio here because this is good stuff. Also, I should say, and I mentioned that this just a little bit earlier today, that this would happen. It's now being reported that the traffic of U.S. military helicopters along the Potomac River, the traffic pattern has now been changed. They've ordered a change in the U.S. military helicopter flight paths in order to keep the helicopters farther away from civilian air traffic going in and out of Ronald Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. Now, that seems like a pretty obvious thing, I've got to say, but there it is. This crash, this catastrophe happened Wednesday night. It's now Friday morning. They're still recovering. I don't believe they've even recovered all of the bodies. But did you see that a number of the bodies were recovered from the not-too-deep waters of the Potomac River right there, still seat-belted into their seats at the bottom of the Potomac River, and apparently rows of seats in the American Airlines plane, people still buckled into their seats, plane crash into the river and everything. But let me get back to, and so they've changed the air traffic pattern along the Potomac River. Seems like a gimme. My bartender, I mentioned earlier today, my bartender last night was pounding the bar and saying, well, why they got to change the pattern along? And now, 18 hours later, that's happened. They were listening to the bartender, which is good. Man, oh, man. Okay, let's go to audio. Let's go to soundbite number 1. Tulsi Gabbard, and we just played the Chuck Schumer soundbite about the intelligence community out to get you, and Tulsi Gabbard channeled that during her remarks, her statements in the Senate confirmation hearing yesterday.
I'm honored and grateful to President Trump for his trust and confidence in nominating me to serve our country as the Director of National Intelligence at a time when trust in the intelligence community, unfortunately, is at an all-time low. Chuck Schumer admitted a few years ago, quote, "You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you." For too long, faulty, inadequate, or weaponized intelligence have led to costly failures and the undermining of our national security and God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution.
That's good stuff all by itself right there. And I love the reference to Schumer and the 6 ways Sunday, the intelligence community. If the intelligence community, individuals in the intelligence community are using their positions to exact political vengeance on American politicians, particularly a president of the United States, they should be gassed at Guantanamo Bay and then freed. But other than that, that's honestly. Tulsi Gabbard talking about the plummeting reputation of the FBI and the intelligence agencies, the Felonious 51 and Christopher Wray and a long list of crimes, and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and the intelligence community with the Felonious 51, but the FBI undermining, and both of them, the intelligence community and the FBI, lying to the FISA court to get illegal warrants to spy on the political enemies of the Democrat Party, Carter Page and beyond. Tulsi Gabbard on that little matter.
Here are just a few other examples. The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice, and yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this: this must end.
This must end. The radical traditionalist Catholics, Latin Mass, and the FBI in the United States is going after, and they are, and Catholic churches and people that go to school board meetings. And in the meantime, a radical Islamic Muslim jihadi shows up in New Orleans on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, massacres people. You notice that story didn't last long either, did it? That was kind of a quick, one day and gone, massive mass murder, radical Islamic jihadi terror attack, and our news media, they're fine with that. They're like, oh, that's not much of it. It's like Steve Scalise being shot by James Hodgkinson, and it was a suicide attack by James Hodgkinson, one of many suicide attacks by the Democrat Party. Just amazing stuff. And Tulsi Gabbard, God bless her. I think I've mentioned I met her. I've met her only once at Newsmax, just long enough to shake her hand, say hello, talk for a handful of minutes, I think, in the break room at Newsmax in D.C., and like everybody else, found her to be perfectly charming and lovely and wonderful and conversational and relaxed and self-contained and not one of these arrogant Washington people, but a normal person. And boy, I tell you. Now, we've played this audio before of her being attacked by Hillary Clinton and stuff, but Senator Tom Cotton, who's a Harvard Law School grad, but don't hold that against him. He's a decorated combat vet, too. Senator Tom Cotton.
I'm dismayed by the attacks on Ms. Gabbard's patriotism and her loyalty to our country. For instance, Hillary Clinton has smeared Ms. Gabbard, calling her an asset of a foreign nation. Let me remind everyone that Ms. Gabbard has served in our Army for more than 2 decades. She has multiple combat tours, and she still wears the uniform to this day. She has undergone 5 FBI background checks. I spent more than 2 hours last week reviewing the latest, putting eyes on more than 300 pages. It's clean as a whistle.
As a whistle. Why are whistles so clean anyway? Why do they have the reputation of being so clean? But it's true, Tulsi Gabbard is a Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army Reserve, served in Iraq, unlike Tim Walz, who did not, even though he said that he did. And she's a proud American, and she was a Democrat. And then, as Ronald Reagan said, I didn't leave the Democrat Party left me. And that's happened to millions and millions of people. You know, Donald Trump was in good with all the Democrats until one day he came down the escalator and said, I'm going to run as a Republican. And then the savages, the suicidal death cult, the Jonestown Democrat Party, has been attacking him and smearing him ever since. But you may recall the Hillary Clinton line. You remember the Hillary Clinton line where Hillary Clinton said, talking about Tulsi Gabbard, that she's being groomed by the Russians to be, and this is, the Democrats are just a merciless gang of bloodthirsty ghouls, Hillary Clinton included.
I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary. She's a favorite of the Russians. Yeah, she's a Russian asset. I mean, totally.
It's Hillary Clinton with the snorting David Plouffe of the Obama White House, smearing and slandering because they demand that you goose step 100% of the time with the hobnailed boots issued by them. And if you deviate from the goose-stepping sheet music of the Democrat Party, then they will do everything they can to destroy you. Now, there was an interesting back and forth with Senator James Langford, who's pressing her on Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden, who is a treacherous, treasonous anti-American. He was hired to do work for the NSA, National Security Agency, leaked mountains and mountains of stuff that he shouldn't have leaked. Then he moved to Russia, and he's become a naturalized Russian citizen. And Senator James Langford is like, well, was Edward Snowden a traitor? I'd say yes, he was, James Langford.
So was Edward Snowden a traitor?
Senator, my heart is with my commitment to our Constitution and our nation's security.
Ours too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have shown throughout my almost 22 years of service in the military, as well as my time in Congress, how seriously I take the privilege of having access to classified information and our nation's secrets. And that's why I'm committed, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, to join you in making sure that there is no future Snowden-type leak, and I would do so by taking 4 specific actions. Number 1, again, to make sure that there are no illegal and unconstitutional programs, limiting in a big way those who have access to our nation's top secrets through security clearance reform, making sure that every single person in the workforce knows about the legal whistleblower channels available to them, and making sure that there's a direct line available to me should anyone have concerns. If people choose to step outside of those legal channels to raise any concerns about programs or actions that exist within the intelligence community that are classified, there will be no excuse to do so, and they should be charged and prosecuted under the law.
Was he a traitor at the time when he took America's secrets, released them in public, and then ran to China and became a Russian citizen?
Senator, I'm focused on the future and how we can prevent something like this from happening again.
I think you could say that his behavior has been treasonous and not risk anything here. But she's a longtime Democrat, so you got to look out for that. And she was born in American Samoa. She's a Pacific Islander. And to paraphrase Joe Biden, I think she's the first mainstream Pacific Islander to come along who's articulate and who's bright and who's clean. Don't you think? Just borrowing a turn of phrase from Joe Biden regarding Barack Hussein Obama. Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel, former member of the House of Representatives, Tulsi Gabbard, now she's come over to the light side. the side of truth, justice, and the American way. Unlike Superman, which gave up the American way. They still have truth and justice, but they've gotten rid of the American way. You know why? Democrats. That's why.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Yeah.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Let's go to RFK because he's another, now I guess, former Democrat. Although I think he'll go back into the Democrat fold after all is said and done. His own family trying to destroy him. Not so sweet Caroline going after her cousin, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., with all kinds of smears and slander. And he's talking about dietary issues. I think it's a conversation we should have. There are alarming numbers about the number of kids that are diabetic now, have chronic illnesses and viruses, that have autism. Where did this all come from? The numbers didn't exist a generation ago, and things have gotten a lot worse. RFK Jr. wants to confront some of this. I think it's a good idea to confront it, have a public debate, discussion about it, find out what's true and what's not. Remember normal, remember America.
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? That's a simple question.
And Bernie. By the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from work.
Weasel words. You hear the weasel words that he used there? That's the PAC money, not from the executives, because RFK said you took millions from Big Pharma. And he starts yelling like the Bolshevik lunatic that he is. But he didn't say that he didn't take millions from the pharmaceutical industry.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money.
From workers all over this country.
Workers.
You were the single.
Not a nickel from corporate tax.
You were the single.
He's a lion Sacagawea, of course, because he's a leftist to the core, a Bolshevik. Good stuff. So they're trying to destroy. It's a Democrat on Democrat violence. I don't think we should object too much. Yeah, honestly, this Democrat on Democrat violence, the Democrats going after Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat member of the House, realized that the Democrat Party's insane and fled the plantation. Pacific Islander, American Samoa. As Democrats go, she's great. RFK Jr., bit of an oddball. But he was always fine until, they attacked him for raising questions about science and vaccines. And that's fine. He gets to raise questions. They get to be critical of him. But he cites a lot of amazing statistics, again, about autism and autism in children and chronic diseases in America and chronic diseases in America in children and food dyes and so on that have been banned in European countries and Japan, and why do people in Japan live 10 years longer than people in the United States. These are all very legitimate questions about our diet and our food supply and maybe about vaccines or medications. These are legitimate questions. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that he's probably wrong about some of it, maybe a lot of it, maybe even most of it. But if he's right about 20% of it, then we should have the discussion. Remember when we used to have free and open discussions in the United States of America before the left took over the Democrat Party? As they attacked Tulsi Gabbard and tried to destroy her, they attacked Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and tried to destroy him. They turn his cousin against him, not so sweet Caroline, and trying to destroy him, slander him, smear him. These are not good people, and politics is an awful, terrible business because of the people that practice it.
I don't think my father would recognize this party, and I don't think my uncle would recognize this party.
I don't think my father, Robert F. Kennedy, killed by Sirhan Sirhan, would recognize this party, the Democrat Party. I don't think my uncle, John F. Kennedy, would recognize this party. It's funny because I've been saying this for years. The reality is, since RFK Jr. just said it there, that his father and his uncle were both assassinated by being shot in the head by gunmen. And today's Democrat Party, I've been saying this for years because it's true, today's Democrat Party is closer on the political spectrum to Lee Harvey Oswald than they are to John F. Kennedy. I am closer to John F. Kennedy on the political spectrum. John F. Kennedy was closer to me on the political spectrum where I am today than where the Democrat Party is. And when it comes to hating the Jews and hating Israel and being with Hamas all over the place, the Democrat Party today is also closer on the political spectrum to Sirhan Sirhan than they are to Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy was a frothy anti-communist. John F. Kennedy was too. Frothy anti-communist. They were pro-tax cuts and thriving economy and meritocracy and honestly, completely ridiculous. There's kind of good news today. We mentioned the other day that Emilio Acosta is leaving CNN, and what's he doing, Substack or something like that? And nobody cares, nobody knows. Amazing stuff. And now we learn that Chunk Todd will be leaving NBC News. He's out. They took away he was the Meet the Press guy, which was a huge error on their part. And then they canned him there and said, we'll put you on MSDNC. And then I don't know if they ever did, but nobody watches that. But Chunk Todd leaving MSDNC, leaving NBC News, and that's good. But they cut Rachel Maddow's pay from $30 million a year to $25 million a year. Boy, that's got to sting. How's she going to make ends meet now? But again, the Democrat Party is closer on the political spectrum to Sirhan Sirhan than they are to Bobby Kennedy today. And that's really true. And more proof came out last night, Thursday night. Delegates of the Professional Staff Congress, they call it the PSC, naturally, because you have to abbreviate Professional Staff Congress. Got to be, you going to the PSC? Oh, just cram it, clown, honestly. So the Professional Staff Congress, the union representing faculty and graduate assistants, more do-nothing jobs at the City University of New York. It's the CUNY, they call it CUNY, the City University of New York. They have voted to condemn Israel, to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel because they're Nazis, right? Because they're a death cult, and they chant from the river to the sea, and they would wipe Israel off the face of the earth. They would wipe Israel off the map, which, again, puts them closer to Sirhan Sirhan on the political spectrum than to Bobby Kennedy. That's literally true. It sounds like hyperbole. It's not. They prove again and again. The Democrat Party, by the way, Sirhan Sirhan's still alive and well, living in a California prison, and the Democrat Parole Board granted Sirhan Sirhan parole more than a year ago, but Governor Gavin Newsom hasn't signed the last and final paper to allow him to walk out the door Honestly, you people. But the City University of New York Professors Union approves a resolution supporting BDS, which is not bondage and discipline, another specialty of the Democrat Party, but the boycott, divest, and sanction against Israel. And it's a radical left-wing extremist anti-Semite movement. And at the City University of New York, the professors have said, oh, yeah, destroy Israel. Let's do away with that. Just to prove that they're the new Sirhan. And they've gone so far left that the communists, Lee Harvey Oswald, fair play for Cuba. The Democrats are all about fair play for Cuba. Barack Obama went down there to suck up to the Castro brothers and stand in front of their big building-sized Che Guevara mural. Oh, amazing stuff, these people. All right, now let's go to so they're trying to destroy Bobby Kennedy. They got his own family turned against him, just like the Democrats did with the Civil War, the first Civil War, turning brother against brother, cousin against cousin. The Democrats they're not the good guys. Boy, are they not the good guys. But Kash Patel also in the dock yesterday on Capitol Hill, and the guy's no dope. I've got to say, I've met him only once, briefly, at a Christmas party at the Schlapp residence, Matt Schlapp and Mercedes Schlapp at their wonderful residence. But he did great yesterday. I got to say, Tulsi Gabbard did amazingly well yesterday. I think RFK Jr., again, with whom I may disagree on some things, but that's okay. And if Trump wants him, then that's great. And I think we should be talking about food safety and all of that good stuff. But let's go to Kash Patel at his confirmation hearing yesterday. Some good stuff there to be FBI director, of course, and clean up the mess that the Democrats have created there.
And while you were chief of staff at DOD, how many times did DOD approach Capitol Police and ask if they needed National Guard assistance?
I believe those letters are well documented, numerous instances, and numerous of those instances, those requests were shut down.
Now, am I correct that the Capitol Sergeant at Arms said assistance was unnecessary?
That's correct, Senator.
Who did the Sergeant at Arms report to?
The Speaker of the House.
That would have been Nancy Pelosi at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
So wait a minute. See, this is one of the big lies about January 6th, and there are multiple big lies, like Nazi-style big lies, Joseph Goebbels-style big lies about January 6th. I heard one of the idiots yesterday say that a number of police officers were killed that day. Their lies are so gobsmacking ridiculous, gigantic, absurd. A great police officer, Brian Sicknick, died the next day of a stroke. And then the Democrats have counted police officers from Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police that committed suicide 8 months later and say he was killed that day. You people are really severely mentally impaired, but you can get jobs at the FAA, so that's good. That's amazing stuff. Now, so the Sergeant at Arms turned down, working for Nancy Pelosi, turned down additional law enforcement and turned down National Guard for January 6th, even though these assets were offered again and again. And who does that trace back to? It traces back to Nancy Pelosi's office, who made the decision. And Kash Patel is having none of it. That was kind of a remarkable thing, I've got to say, that little back and forth. Now, where are we going to 25? Is that correct? Now to 25. That was cut last for the day that we just played with Ted Cruz. Of course, you recognize the voice. And Nancy Pelosi was offered National Guard assistance, and she turned it down, and then said, "Oh, they didn't offer any help." And she's lied and lied and lied, and she's an illegal insider trader who has become fantastically wealthy along with her husband based on insider trading off of Capitol Hill. Isn't that just great? Wah, wah, wah. All right, so now let's go to This is a Democrat senator. So, you know that he's corrupt. And his name is Peter Welch. And Peter Welch is trying to get Kash Patel. It's like, oh, yeah? Did you win the election? So this little back and forth with a radical communist, anti-American, so-called Democrat, Vermont, Peter Welch.
Do you believe that the 2020 election was stolen, as President Trump says it is?
Sir, my opinions on the 2020 election have been expressed in this hearing, and he's entitled to whatever opinions he wants.
Do you agree with him that the election was stolen in 2020?
Senator, millions of Americans have expressed concern going back to multiple elections over election integrity.
You know, you're so skillful.
Thank you.
You understand what I'm asking you. Can you say...
I do.
...the words, Joe Biden won the 2020 election?
Joe Biden was the president of the United States.
You understand this. There's a difference. I can say the words, Donald Trump won. I don't like to say it, but I must say it.
Take your meds.
And you cannot say that Joe Biden won the election.
What I can say is the same for both of them, Senator. Both of their elections were certified, and they are both, one was and one now is president.
Okay.
Yeah, and Kash Patel was calm, cool, and collected, and even killed, and it really gets to these mental dwarves that we call senators. The one-time greatest deliberative body in the world, the United States Senate, has become a shambles. And hey, Senator, you're a Democrat senator. You're from Vermont, where Bernie Sanders is from. Peter Welch, I'd like to, if I were doing one of these hearings, I'd want to have a big TV screen behind me or a couple of them, and I'd start rolling video of Hillary Clinton talking about the 2016 election that she lost to Donald Trump.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
Woo! Yay! The applause and the cheering is the best part of that. Yeah, you can have the election stolen from you. Hey, we love stealing elections. Let's applaud stealing elections. Hillary Clinton also said that the election that we just had in November was going to be usurped by the terrible Republicans who had an evil plot.
Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election.
Excellent. That is great to hear. And it was carried out successfully. Stolen again. Just don't say that any election was tampered with or stolen. How about the news media? How about the Russian collusion? How about the Hillary dossier? How about the Felonious 51 and the phony letter that they ran an information operation against the American people, and it worked because they're criminals like penitentiary face Brennan. How about the FBI under Biden being on the horn and Christopher Wray being on the horn with Facebook and with Twitter, telling them not to allow people to share true news stories about the corruption of the Biden family? Is that tampering with the election? You may remember the old DNC chair and former Virginia Governor Terry McAwful talking about the 2000 election.
If Catherine Harris, Jeb Bush, Jim Baker, and the Supreme Court hadn't tampered with the results, Al Gore would be president.
And then he said that that's the 2000 election. The 2004 election was also stolen.
We actually won the last presidential election, folks. They stole the last presidential election.
But when you're a Democrat, that's all okay. That's all fine. So, hey, Senator from Vermont, just go cross illegally into Canada and don't come back. These people, and who's the governor of Georgia again? It's all fine when Democrats, and for years and years, Terry McAwful, still insisting. Now, they claim that the 2000 election was stolen, the Florida recount, the Supreme Court. The 2004 election was stolen, George W. Bush being reelected. The 2016 election was stolen. They had a plot to steal the 2024 election. And all of that is just fine with Democrats with tiny little squirrel brains. Too much fentanyl coursing through their brain, like George Floyd, you know. Amazing people, these people. But if you should raise an eyebrow at the CIA, the FBI, the news media, and the Congress tampering with our presidential election, well, then that, they pound the table for decades to come. They claim that every election in the 21st century that they didn't win was stolen. Every presidential election in the 21st century that they didn't win was stolen. The ones that they won, no, those were legit. That's they're very corrupt people.
I believe that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. All of my kids are vaccinated. I've written many books on vaccines. My first book in 2014, the first line of it is, I am not anti-vaccine.
The first line of his book on vaccines is, I'm not anti-vaccine. He's got 6 kids. He said all of his kids are vaccinated. He says he's not anti-vaccine. But Elizabeth Warren, who is not Native American, just like Dr. Jill Biden is not a doctor, Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, who lied about being Native American her whole adult life to climb her way up the left-wing ladder at Harvard and so on. She was on The View today with the radical extremist lunatic. Are they women? Has anybody? Nobody wants to check. But the View, and here's Elizabeth Warren lying about fellow Democrat, lifetime Kennedy family Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Here's Pocahontas this morning on The View, lying.
He will have all of these tools just very quietly with no oversight, because he'll be the guy in charge.
That's a lie.
To undercut vaccines so that he can make more money in the future, and the rest of us could end up literally with no vaccines at all to give to our children.
That's right. We could end up.
It's despicable.
It is despicable. This is what that's an ABC News program, by the way, ABC News Division. And she is a pathological, perhaps a psychopathological liar. She's not Native American. She never was. Sure, her papaw did not have high cheekbones. I looked into this. Turns out her papaw's cheekbones were not really very high, not unusually high at all. Per papaw, just amazing stuff. And this is because he's no longer goose-stepping to the party music. The Democrat Party demands total fealty. And ABC News should have all their press passes in Washington stripped away from them, since The View is an ABC News show.